within the meaning of the 14th Amendment, and that this person who was not violent but who helped to incite this insurrection engaged in it for constitutional purposes, and he's now out of office and banned from office in the future.
Yeah. So what's interesting there, is Joyce, is that the state law provided the avenue, right, to make the claim, right? So state law and New Mexico law says a citizen can sue if they believe an office holder is not eligible. All this is going to come down to different, sort of state law questions. To the Secretary of State, do you have the opportunity, like in New Mexico? But the sort of one thing I've seen raised, and I'm curious what you think at a sort of constitutional matter, is that that it would be one thing if you had someone who is, say, convicted of seditious conspiracy, like the individuals we talked about earlier this evening, who a jury of their peers found guilty, right, of something essentially akin to insurrection. But in the absence of that, you can't just do this willy-nilly. What do you think?
Right. I think that that's the key point. New Mexico had a statute on the books that provided for a process. The Constitution creates this barrier, and then in Section 5, it says, and Congress can pass any laws necessary. So the problem that we have is that there's really a dearth of laws here that advise the courts and the citizenry on how to implement this prohibition on people holding office after participating in this sort of behavior. That's not to say that it can't be done, though. I mean, Section 3 appears in the Constitution itself. And so strict constructionists would argue with some force, and some of them have recently, that this is in some sense self-executing and that you don't need a mechanism. But, Chris, to your initial point, it's clear what you do have to have is process. You can't just have an individual decision to strip someone off of the ballot. Secretary of State Billows in Maine explains how careful and thorough they are. And if a candidate doesn't like their decision, then they can go to court and challenge it. That's how a process like this would have to work.